Let me ask you first to introduce yourselves, I guess, starting from this end.
My name is Scott Crispin. I'm with the Sheriff's Department.
Lieutenant Kevin Biter, New York State DEC.
Anthony Glorioso, I'm a conservation officer here in Greene County.
Michael Art, Conservation Officer here in Greene County.
Yes, that is the bear whisperer. We met last year with the Sheriff's Department was here, and DEC wasn't able to make it that night. And we had a discussion about the situation in the stream, and we were talking outside about it, that we have people here who, as Jill said, have been told by their insurance companies, don't let anybody on your land, liability, blah, blah. We've got people here who don't mind having people on their land, and everything in between. We've seen increasing pressure on the stream. We have a unique situation where, if you look at the map, we have town land right in the center of town, literally right under the bridge here, the Tannery Bridge. We have some parking issues which we're trying to sort out with the town at the same time. But what we really want to have you talk with us about is, if you don't want people on your land or in your stream, for example, what sort of posting do you need to do to make that a legal exclusion? I gather there is specific rules about what you need to post. Another thing that we talked about last time was how we can, if a situation begins to arise, how we can get in touch with someone to come and help address the situation. So those are the types of issues. I'm going to throw it open to you, and Kevin, if you would start just by talking about the issues in general.
Sure. One of the topics that Mr. Davis mentioned was posting. I mean, us working for New York State DEC, Department of Environmental Conservation, the posting that we get involved with in the trespass issues pertain to people that enter upon people's property for generally for hunting and fishing, that kind of stuff. And posting your property, you actually, under our law, you can have a sign every 660 feet. It's a long distance, you know. Usually if people post their properties, they're usually probably every 100, 200 feet, but it's just, that's what it is. It's just an old law, and it's 660 feet. And you have to have every corner, you have to have a posted sign every corner and every side. So if people were entering upon your property for fishing, that kind of stuff, generally, I mean, you could call us, you could call any police officer and could handle it, but to charge them under the environmental conservation law, your property had to be posted, and on the posted sign it would have to have your name and address and stuff like that. And that'd be it for posting. I don't know, like if you, with the penal law.
Penal law is different than that, Kevin. It's penal law is basically, not that I'm going to quote it off the top of my head verbatim, but it basically says to enter and remain unlawfully on a premise, all right, which is property owned by a private citizen, basically what premise is. If you go to a property and you know you don't own it, and you're entering there and you're told to leave, you really don't have no right to stay there afterwards. If you go to a property that you don't own and you see their signs up, do not enter, posted, no trespassing, such like that, as signs such as that, and you go in, you know you're trespassing. Basically, the way we work it as police officers, if there's no sign there, you know, and a person goes in, a regular citizen wanders onto your property and there's nothing there that's telling him to stay off, we don't normally would treat that as a trespass unless you could confronted that person and told them, hey, listen, this is my property. I own from this point here to this point here. I don't want anybody here. If they refuse to leave and they have no other reason to believe that that property is theirs or that they have a right to be there, like let's say for the sake of argument, this is one lot of property and this right here is another lot of property. They have permission to be on this lot, but there's no defining line between the two, and they wander onto this one. I really wouldn't feel right, me personally, about charging this person with trespass because he really didn't know he was doing anything wrong. Does that kind of explain to you guys in a nutshell where I'm getting at? I mean, okay.
Is there any?
I don't want to see, if anybody's got a question, please ask.
How close the signs need to be posted under this?
Under the penal law, it doesn't have to really be any signs posted. I mean, I would prefer that there is some type of signage up, so that if you have a situation such as what I've just explained, you have a bit more of a leg to stand on. From what I understand, I mean, I haven't swam in these creeks probably since I was 15 years old, and that's quite a while ago. From what I understand, now it's mostly a lot of out-of-town people that are here. It's not so much the local kids anymore. It's people coming from either day trippers from the city or further towns down south. Am I right?
Yes.
Okay.
Not actually.
Not actually?
No, there's firefighters, younger members of the fire department who have been chased off of, from what I understand, public land,
Okay. Chased off of public land.
over by the Tannery Bridge.
Okay. If it's town property, all right, then no other citizen of the town, from what I would view it as, can tell them to leave. It would be up to somebody from the town to designate that property that nobody's allowed to be there, somehow designate it, or post it, or put up some type of barrier or something to make someone believe that they're not allowed to be there. That if I'm crossing this barrier, if I'm climbing over this fence, I probably shouldn't be here. I mean, if you have to climb over a fence to get into someplace, chances are the people that put up the fence don't want you in there. You should have, I know common sense isn't all that common, but you should have a little bit of common sense to not be in there in the first place. But I mean, if I was over here and I knew that was town property and I wanted to go down to that stream and fish, I would think if the town owns it and there's nothing there, that I would be okay to go down there and fish. As long as I didn't stray onto people's property that I knew was private.
From what I've been told is they have gone down there and law enforcement has told them to leave.
Off the town property?
Yeah.
Okay.
See, I think there might be a little bit of confusion, and correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, dealing with state land is open to the public. But I think the difference, and there was an issue up there in the town of Durham there, it was mentioned in the publication here in the last meeting, just because it's town land, I don't think it's necessarily public land. Am I right?
No.
I mean, if the town wants to post their property, just because a town owns something doesn't necessarily mean it's carte blanche.
Without a posting, there is no posting saying you cannot go in there.
Right, it's no different than your own private property at your house. I mean, but I think there's people might be misconstrued just because the town of Kaaterskill owns that particular
No,
piece
but
of
at this
land.
time, there's no posting. And
Right.
that was a question I was gonna be asking, but I'll ask it now. If the town has decided not to post it, or simply able to fail to post it, is that open land? If it's town property.
Me personally, I would say, yeah, if there's nothing there telling people to stay off it, and the town doesn't want to post it, or doesn't have the ability, or has made no effort to stop people from going on it.
So what would be the recourse of someone who's there? The law enforcement comes and tells them to get off. Obviously, the person with the bigger gun wins, so they should leave. What's their recourse at that point? Who would they then go to say, hey, my rights have been violated?
I would check with the town just to confirm that somebody from the town, either the town supervisor or one of the town board members, just to confirm that it is okay to be there.
Thank you.
I think that's the big, maybe we gotta find out who's picking the phone up and calling about trespassers here on this town piece
The
of
neighbors.
They're not, well, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, Kevin and Scott, you can't be a complainant if you don't own the property.
I would say not.
You know, if you're not a town official, it's just me calling up and saying, hey, somebody's on so-and-so's property, he's out of town, I'm not the property owner, I can't sign a complaint.
Yeah, not for trespassing
Not for
anyway.
trespassing.
Yeah, I
They
mean,
have to be doing
unless
something
you're
else.
like a caretaker or
Unless you're a
something like that.
caretaker, yeah, exactly, you're a caretaker, which normally you get something in writing, that's notarized that says, I'm the caretaker of this 110 acres, owned by so-and-so, and the town is, very specific, but you can't sign a complaint against somebody for trespassing if you don't own the property.
Yeah.
So these people that are calling over here, I mean, we run into it all the time, especially during, our busy hunting season, where you get people call up that say, there's hunters over on this property. The first thing I ask is, are you the landowner? You're not the landowner, then I'm really not gonna entertain it. Because I don't know if they might have permission to be on there. So,
But can be a solution, some options to be safe, because once it's not clear a law how much the state own, when it started the property for the owner, then can be some negotiation here to enjoy at least what the state own, because the river it's a beauty.
Yeah, but the state doesn't own
the state doesn't own anything.
I mean, the owner doesn't own the stream, the river.
They don't own the
They
water.
don't own the water.
Yeah,
They don't own the water, but they would own the property at the bottom of it.
Yeah, and the stream too, and it's enough space when the river is not high, to enjoy it. I mean, it's gotta be security too, don't pass, but it just cannot,
Like they're saying, though, the state doesn't, being specific back here, it's owned by either the town or private owners. The state doesn't own, it's like you said, the state owns the water, but on the ground underneath the water is owned by either the town or whoever
but this is a beauty, this is the beauty for this place, and if you put restriction, this thing can bring a lot of revenue, because people, they can go hiking, they can do all kinds of activities, but once you close this, you close a lot of doors.
It's privately owned though.
No, but the stream, the river.
The stream is privately owned.
It's on property,
Right.
it's privately
That's what
owned.
you don't know.
You can be in the water, let's say for the sake of argument, if you were on a boat in the water, and you own property, if someone was on a boat in the water, and you had a stream running through your property, and they took a boat down that stream, and you own the property on either side.
Floated.
They're floating. They are perfectly fine and legal to do what they're doing, okay? If they are walking in the stream, you own the property underneath, but you don't own the water, okay? So if they're walking, it would be considered illegal,
Trespassing.
trespassing. If they're floating in a boat, it's perfectly fine.
So you're able to swim,
No, it's,
but
see,
you can't walk on the rocks. Is
Yeah,
that-
technically, yeah. I mean, it's, if.
I mean, obviously, you gotta
That
walk.
was my understanding that the access to the stream is where the private ownership was, but once you were in the stream.
No, if
that
you're
would be
standing
water
like
to the
ankle
west.
deep in the water or knee
No,
deep
that's
in the
not
water, you're still trespassing.
Yeah, and that's not a
see,
navigable
they are
stream.
solution, Rockefeller, he owned the whole plaza, but it's open for the public, it's his. But, so he knows it's his plaza, one day a year, the plaza is closed. Just so people, they know it's private property, but that even the place is used 364 days. So the same thing, here can be something, I mean, if everybody closed, then what? It's no law here, because law means to give. So everybody's gonna speak for himself, which doesn't know. It's gotta be an option or some solution.
If you're standing in the stream, you're standing on somebody's property. So, I mean, I'm in the stream, I can be in the stream, I have a right to be in the stream. You don't.
It's not like a game of tag. Well, I made it across the property, I'm in the stream, I'm home free. It's not about that.
Yeah, so I mean, somebody owns the, if you're standing in it, somebody owns whatever you're standing on, whether you own it or your neighbor or the town or somebody owns it.
So is fishing different?
No, fishing.
You can't fish,
Pardon?
I mean,
We're in the firehouse.
I didn't understand the question. Pardon?
the question is, are the rules any different for fishing if you,
Oh, if you're fishing, not really.
like if you're going on town land and then you walk in the water, but you're fishing?
Well, if you're on the town property, you would have a right to be there.
Okay.
There are some streams in this county where the state has bought up the fishing rights, so I know a lot of, like on the Catskill Creek and stuff like that. I mean, miles of stream where the people have the right to walk up and down the stream and fish, even though they're on other people's property. But
This
that's
lady
not,
over here has had her hand up for quite a while.
I reside right by the bridge, so I see what goes on all the time. There's a lot of swimmers, and I hope that they still could jump off, whatever they jump off and land, and that's,
now, is that the town's property?
I don't know, yes.
Okay, so I mean, realistically, the town is the landowner, and
Okay.
so, you know, whether the town supervisor, somebody who represents the town is gonna have to decide whether they want these people there or they don't. If they say, yeah, you can swim there, you can be there, then you can be there. If they say, no, you can't be there, then you can't be there, you know, so I mean, whoever owns the property, I guess the town owns it,
Now,
so.
you're talking about the bridge and underneath the bridge. This where, you know, you have a lot of,
Actually,
yeah.
for those of you who came in late, there's a map posted up here that shows the town land on it.
So that's town land.
And everything on this side of Canterbury Bridge and also on the other side going down
Okay.
Kaaterskill Avenue
All right.
is town property.
And there was another issue last year. Being that I live so close, I see what's going on. 3 times there were pickup trucks coming and bringing big buckets down into the stream, filling them up, and then taking them up and filling the back of their pickup trucks up. So the first time they went over and
With water?
they got very hostile, so they had little stones for the reef.
Yeah, it's, I mean,
Can we take stones for the reef?
No.
Stones,
Stones.
oh, stones?
I called the town, but nobody ever called me down.
Yeah, no, it's probably a trout stream, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so actually, no, you wouldn't be able to, no.
Yeah, but who do you contact?
Well, you could contact us.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we have a,
Cards and stuff
we have a-
out for.
we have a 24-hour dispatch, so 24/7, 365, was it?
We'll ask for the numbers at the end of the meeting.
Okay, yeah, anyways, but, so we have a
Maybe
dispatch.
even one for the person, though? I mean, because they may be gone by the time.
License plates.
Well, you can call, I mean,
Pictures.
you can call 911 if you want to do it that way.
No, I
You know.
mean license plate numbers and pictures of.
Descriptions.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, license,
Picture
sure.
of truck, license plate. It's all
so
video going on.
That was a case
That's-
where she was saying that water was being taken from the stream?
No, I think she said rocks,
Okay.
yeah, stones and stuff, yeah. Yeah.
Can I
Okay.
go back to the town property question? And I don't know if this is the right group to address in terms of asking this question, but I've read about the Durham swimming holes.
Right.
The town put up signs saying you have to do these, they had rural signs they put up at the swimming holes. And the health department came down and shut down all their swimming holes.
Right,
Because they have to meet, once they open up the swimming hole officially, they have to meet all these health department codes, including how many bathers per square foot and.
I think they had to get a lifeguard too, and they didn't want to, right. Yeah.
So in practice, if the town doesn't say yes or doesn't say no to somebody being in the water, nobody calls the police and the people in the water, then it seems to be kind of a push. But the day that the town says, yes, you can bathe off the Tannery Bridge, it's officially our park and you can do it, we have to meet all these health department criteria, which come with costs to the town. So
Probably, most likely, it seems like that's probably the way
See,
it would
the town of
go.
Durham actually posted large signs on their side of the stream that said, this is open, public swimming, and so that's what they did.
Yeah, but they're kind of encouraging it,
encouraged it.
sort of.
To try to keep people on their side of the stream, because the opposite side of the stream was a private piece of property. So with them putting those signs up and encouraging the public to swim on their property, that's where the health department got involved.
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend that. I wouldn't, just, because I know they were recommending it, and there was, on the other side of the stream there in Durham, there was a private residence, and it just got out of hand. I mean, they were partying, throwing rocks at the guy's house, and
They had
It was
at
just-
times
it was just-
300 people.
it was just-
in maybe 150 feet, 200 feet of beachfront.
yeah, it was just a big
You know,
party,
any
you know,
given
so.
holiday,
Garbage and
weekend.
just bad, you know, so.
I wonder if they can do just for fishing access only or something on the town property.
I have a question. Would it be possible to post things that don't directly say anything about swimming, like no littering? Things that would apply to the town, but just have them there when it gets crowded?
I mean, you're talking town property, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I
To
mean,
avoid the health department.
Yeah, because you're just putting signs up that are restricting things. You're not
Yeah.
encouraging.
you should probably, is there anybody from the town here
Town
tonight?
attorney at all represent here or no?
Next meeting. Next meeting. Town supervisor and also pizza would be good.
But it's good, it's gonna be a survey, like some blueprints, you know, maybe it can be a place where you can have a free access.
That's on the town.
Yeah, I mean, if it's on town property, it's up to them to decide what they want to do with their property or they don't want to do with it, really.
So I've got a scenario, you were saying if we're standing in the creek, we're standing on private property. What
Most-
if you're
most
in
likely.
the creek with permission from the private property owner, but the guy on the other side also owns, like is it halfway through?
You would have to look at the deed.
Yeah.
You know, a person's deed, I have no idea. You'd have to look at the deed and see if it
The
says,
land under the creek?
See,
well,
there's some
maybe
properties-
people own on both sides of the creek. I have no idea.
There's a lot of
But I'm
deeds.
saying in a situation where one man or woman owns on one side and someone else owns on the other side, and you have permission to be in on the one side, but are you trespassing on the other guy's side?
It would, well, the deeds would either say that the properties go to the center line of the creek, or they would say that they go to the top of the bank. I don't know, without looking at the deed. But if they went to the center
Would I be
line,
able to see the deed?
pardon?
Would I be able to
You can
access?
see those all online.
Yeah, they're all open to the public. You'd be able to look at them. If it was to the center line of the creek, I mean, technically then, you know, you would own half of the ground, and it would depend on
Yeah,
what
that's
side
what
you were
I'm getting
standing on, but.
The problem is too, with a lot of those deeds that they say the property line is the center of the stream. With the storms that we've had over the last 5 years, everybody knows these streams have moved. And it's unfortunate, some people might lose 100 feet of stream frontage, you know, where that stream used to be. And then the other guy gains, you know, that much more property, believe it or not. That piece of property that may have been yours at one time, the deed says the center of the stream. That stream moved 100 feet this way, you lost it and he gained it. You know, and it obviously becomes a civil issue with, you know, getting that property line changed or whatever, but the deeds are all different. Some might say the center of the stream, some might say, you know, the western bank of the stream.
It could say to the top of the bank.
Top of the bank.
I've
So that's-
seen both.
Yeah.
Uh,
All different.
Yeah, and I would recommend too, I mean, if you have private property and it goes up to the stream, I would, and let's say you're gonna post it or not post it, I would at least get it surveyed so you know where it is. I mean, that's where you have to start. You have to get it so you know where it is, and you can mark it out too. You can mark out, you know, what you own, and then you can make your decision after that point whether you want to post it or not. But until you get to that point, you can't really post it. I'm sorry.
Under the Tannery Bridge, which is, from what I'm hearing, is town-owned, right?
Oh, I don't know.
The land is.
Okay, what can you do under there? Like what, okay. But I mean, we've seen people barbecuing down there, doing things.
Is it town
So-
property?
Yeah.
Okay, so you'd have to ask the town what they want.
So what are, I mean, how much of that is allowed or not
That's up to
allowed?
the town.
Because you would assume that
It's-
some of that wouldn't be good.
It's up to the
for
property
environmental
owner.
people.
I mean, it's really, yeah, no, I understand. It's really, you know, whoever owns the property, they get to decide what you do and you don't do. To a certain extent, I'm just saying, until you get to where you're violating other laws. But, you know, whoever owns the property, they can say, yeah, you can cook and grill on my property, you can swim or do whatever, you know, whether it's town or
So the other question I have is
private.
noise levels at times, because I have a home office and I'm right right across the street from the Tannery Bridge. So, you know, how much am I allowed to, or are they allowed to do? You know, 'cause
You'd
that's
have-
the whole thing, is
the only-
without knowing
it would
what's
be a
allowed,
town
it's
ordinance
hard.
if there was a noise thing, it would be a town ordinance, and I don't know whether there is or there isn't.
Could you tell us what the town ordinance is about noise? Does anybody know what that is?
You have to get all of the code enforcement with.
They just changed it. It was based on decibels, but nobody knew how to use the decibel meters, so they've just changed it to a reasonable person louder than a reasonable person would accept or something like that. So
And
it's-
that's any time of the day?
No, it's by hours also. I'm not sure what the time is, but I think I'm going to say, I think it's after 10 p.m. I think so, but I'm not
You
certain.
see, because with the concerns that I have, just having the home business,
Understand.
is during the daytime, it's really very disruptive.
Understand. Understand.
Did you have a question, ma'am?
I did. We own a small creek frontage on Mill Lane. Our deed definitely goes to the center of the creek.
Okay.
However, and I'm bordered by Zane and Zane. Zane has given us permission to use, and so has Dan, to use access to use the creek whenever we want. However, the property owner on this side of the creek, who owns the bank and halfway across to my property, but does not own the swimming hole or any part of it, routinely calls to have people ejected, even those who have permission to be there by Zane, who have accessed the creek from the Mill Lane side with permission, but this gentleman routinely calls, and the state police come and they do eject people. But what I'm hearing you say is, if he does not own any part of that part of the creek, and people are not on his bank,
Yeah, well, he doesn't have any
he
right.
doesn't have any right.
Well, he can complain, but it's not legitimate,
Okay.
you know, so.
I just wanted to be very clear
Yep,
about that.
yep,
Thank
yep.
you.
No,
Is
sure.
there anything that we can do as a community to help the case of these people? Like if there was like a routine thing that people would sign with the property owner, like if Dan always, if I had this little piece of paper that Dan Souza had signed that says I can be on there,
Well,
would that be helpful?
that always helps.
Yeah, we see them during,
Yeah.
they're issued during hunting season where, if you're gonna be on someone's property, it's specifically, it says an ask permission thing, and it's filled out by you, the property owner, and if we come upon somebody who says, there's a trespass complaint going on, and you go and you interview the person that's allegedly trespassing, they'll pull this out and it'll have his name and property owner that gives him permission to be on the property.
Yeah, I'm sure probably.
It's that easy.
The Palenville group could probably come up with something like that, permission slip thing and signed by the
constant.
landowner, and you have it on your person, and it might, help with, difficult issues.
Okay.
Definitely.
Any ideas on how to post basically in the center of the street? People come into town access and walk down, and they have no idea where the lines are. Quite frankly, the owners probably don't even know where the lines are.
Yeah, it's pretty tough.
You're in a hard situation here because a lot of the creek bottom is solid rock. I mean, it's kind of hard to put a post in it or anything like
You'd
that.
almost
Put it on
have
the
to,
bank and face it, in the direction of which would, because like I said, if you're gonna get into posting, you're gonna be posting your corners. Stake it on, the bank as best you can and face it in the direction of where people are walking from.
you could put if you have permission from the person who owns the property on the other side, you could put
On both sides.
I was gonna say you could put like a wire put across or something, high up in the air that you could put a sign on, something that somebody couldn't rip down or something like that,
Our biggest problem is that we own the property, and for the most part, we don't have an issue with local people or outside people coming and swimming and whatever. Our problem is the beer bottles, the graffiti, the dirty diapers, the noise, the campfires under the bridge, firecrackers at midnight. So at this point, it's almost forced us landowners to say, Now it's nobody,
Yeah.
because people have abused it. So,
Sure.
and our problem is for us, where we are, our properties are right next to each other. People are parking up here at the Tannery Bridge and walking down the stream to our property. So our signs are up on the land, but they don't know when they're walking down the stream, at what point do they hit our land and they're not allowed to go any further. Or we put signs up and they tear them down and we find them floating in the creek.
Yeah. I'm sure the people probably don't care either.
No.
One of the things I've noticed is that the town is facilitating these people getting into the creek by creating a parking lot for them up at the top of, right behind the building here, is a parking lot that didn't used to be there. It used to be grass. And they took out this part of the Veterans Memorial Park and made it gravel when we built the retaining wall. And what that ends up being, for the most part, is people from out of town, or maybe people from other parts of town, but there's a huge number of cars that park here, and they just walk down the hill and jump in the Tannery Bridge and kind of spread out from there in both directions on the creek. And I'm wondering if there's ways in which the town can support the people who live on the creek by not creating these kinds of inviting situations. You know, it's a lot harder to haul a case of beer, you know, half a mile than it is to haul it 100 yards. So, and I find people who come in on their bikes or walk in, or kids generally don't do all that stuff. It's the people who can drive right there.
Yeah, if you can drive there with your car, it's going to be that much more easier for people to take advantage of the situation. So, I mean, but if they're accessing on town property, then you're going to have to talk with the town.
Raise it with Karen.
Yeah.
This goes back
That's
to
right.
two or three
Okay.
questions. If we don't have the state police representative, we have New York State DEC, and we have the
Sheriff's Department.
Someone mentioned that the state police are the ones that are coming in and tossing people out. Say you don't have this piece of paper that says that you have permission, but you do have verbal permission. You obviously have to listen to whatever law enforcement tells you to do. Again, my question is what would be the recourse at that point? You're obviously going to follow the instruction of the law enforcement. What would you then suggest to enforce your rights that you have for the next time?
Well, it has to be the owner of the property's got to be the complainant, right?
Yeah, I mean,
So
this
if we're
goes back
talking-
to what we talked about earlier,
If
if
we're-
it's not the owner of the property calling, then.
Right, but if the state police are taking the word for the person that
Yeah.
it is, you know, how do you fight, you know, it's.
Bring that up with the state police.
Well, my suggestion would be is whoever's the one that's, the swimmer or whoever it is there that's being told to leave, is get a hold of the property owner and have them call the state police and explain to them that they do have permission to be there, and, you know, that, but like I said, unless you're a property owner, I'm not telling you to leave. You know, that's the way we always.
Yeah, because then if you got the property owner on the phone, and then you got Joe Smith standing next to you, and you say, Joe says, well, you know, does Joe have permission to be on your property? No, he doesn't. Okay, well then, you know, you can deal with it. Or then he says, oh yeah, I did, I told Joe, he can be there. And it's okay, all right. So that's why, I mean, that's why you have to talk with the landowner.
A picture, it's 1,000 words. So if the owner has the survey, he can put caution tape, you know, the yellow tape, and then everybody knows that it's his property, and he don't have to pass that tape.
Yeah, I mean, you're gonna, you know,
But I mean, that can be a good solution, you know, because
if you want
the
to,
owner wanna, you know, protect his property, then he's gotta put that tape. It's not a big deal.
you have to somehow market that it's yours and you don't want people there. I mean, that's unfortunately, it's aesthetically maybe not what you want to do, but there is no other way. How else do you do it?
Yes, Dan. Last year I had a bunch of problems on my property, vandalism, people shitting in the roadway I put in. It was kind of messed up. So we put up a camera and we caught some people actually busting off the chain that I had. I spoke to the sheriff's department. They were supposed to come out. They never did. I never followed up on it because I figure I know they're spread thin and it's really not that much of a thing. So I talked to my lawyer, and when we were talking about the water and people in the stream with boats. The way he explained it to me is that if it's navigable, someone can come down on a boat and they can do portage. That's when someone's allowed on your property. Yes. Right. They have to get off of the street.
Yeah.
But unless they have a boat, it's null and void. And then he suggested putting in a fence. He said that's the best thing It's better than private property signs because people rip them down and all that. How far can the fence go towards the creek? That's the question, before it becomes a violation.
That, depending on, I don't know how your property lays out, but obviously, you've got a bank of a stream, you're putting your fence on, you're talking about putting on top of the bank? Or you probably want to go back down.
I'm just wondering how far you can actually, how close can you go to the stream with your last fence goes before it becomes?
Well, you can go right.
I was told you can't build in the
You
stream.
can go right to the top of the bank if you go down the bank down into the stream course, then you have to get a permit from DEC.
Well, I'm just saying that because with the access for the swinging bridge, part of the case with the liability is that there's going to be a fence going to the top of the swinging bridge, going to the road. So I just want to make sure we can go to the top of the swinging bridge, which is at the top of the bank. So we're good to go up to the bridge. So.
Okay. Is this swinging bridge there now or no?
No.
Or is this something that was there years
It
ago?
was there, but hopefully we're going to rebuild it.
All right. Is that just off from that guy's property? All right. I think we've been on a little bit of the stream here and there, and I'm trying to think. I think maybe I've seen where there's a place where it looks like there's a couple of concrete.
Yeah.
And there's nothing there, right? They got it blocked off with wood, I think, on one side or something like
Let them have
that.
liability. The town is going to, it's going to have off of the bridge. There's going to be 4-foot split rail fence of some sort, funneling people to the street, so they're not coming off the bridge and then going onto the private property.
So that's a town access kind of thing? Is it?
It's all private land, but I'm getting access.
Oh, is it? It's all, okay.
One more question. Oh, no, it's gone out. Never mind.
That's okay.
Oh, here it is. This is hearsay. Someone had told me that they had been.
Mountain lions? No. No, I'm not going there.
That if someone is on your property wearing waders, carrying a fishing pole, they have legal access to your stream for fishing.
No. Not unless the state's bought the fishing rights along your property prior. Yeah, no. If they're on the town's property, they probably would be all right for fishing, but other than that,
People
no.
cross private property in fishing gear
No.
to get to town.
No.
Thank you.
No. And if they do, make sure that you call us. Absolutely.
It would seem to be, based on everything was said tonight, a good start might be if the town's encouraging access to their property, that they should put a sign, with a map on it, maybe similar to that, say, here's the town property, if you're outside of that, there's a possibility you could be arrested for trespassing, so at least, you have something there visually when you enter by the bridge there, they can look at it and say, all right, here's the boundaries, rather than having physical barriers and fences and things.
That kind of sounds like just
Right.
putting signs up too for, I would think the town would probably think that's encouraging people to come here. I don't know what the town's,
Absolutely doing it though.
yeah,
Like the parking.
I don't know what the town's, what's the town,
Well, we discussed earlier, there's clearly a line of no littering, being able to say that, but without getting into the situation we're not into, which I don't think we want to. So what we'll need to do is work with the town lawyer and see what can be posted. My guess is that it will be better to, and I understand people tear down the signs and throw them in the water and those issues, but that from the outside expressing the limits rather than the town trying to define how far you can go, I think will probably be more successful.
I wonder how we did with the no parking signs. I think there was some conversation at one point, and that there was some input asked from Palenville the Hamlet about no parking signs
Yep.
along the creek.
Yep.
Did the town determine to put no parking signs everywhere along the creek, or was there some question about that?
The last discussion we had, which was at a meeting here, was that by the time we determined where everybody wanted no parking, it was going to be no parking signs along every street in Palenville. And it was then sort of agreed that might be a little excessive, that maybe we didn't want to have parking signs all along the creek, everywhere in Palenville. So we stepped back from that, and we need to go revisit it, basically.
Will the existing no parking signs be something that will be ticketable during the swimming years, during the summer? Because we have no parking signs in front of, there were no parking signs all along our street, and anywhere there's not a no parking sign, there's a herd of cars from somewhere else. They're pulling up on your lawn, they're all over the place.
There were no parking signs, there was no law,
Okay.
so there was no ticketing. So what we need to do is get a law in place and then put the signs where the law says not to park.
Can that be developed before summer?
Yep.
That'd be great, because.
Well, we're gonna have to find people to develop it. We sat and talked about it, and we got it up to a point, and it never got moved beyond that, so.
And if these signs were there, and, well, wait a minute, I'm sorry, Sheriff, I apologize, I realize that this is probably, it might even be a moot point, because pretty much most of the places along the stream, it's either you have to park on someone's private property, or you have to park with two wheels on the road, both of which are illegal, if I understand that correctly.
If you're blocking the road, yeah, then we can probably issue a ticket for parked on pavement, yeah.
So if they park on the pavement and is there, I'm trying to figure this out, because in front of our house, we have no parking signs. It's a 2-lane road, it's very tiny. If somebody's parking out on the road, in theory, not that we would call you every 15 minutes, but, in theory, if someone was parking out there, a group of people, and we called you and they had their wheels on the pavement, would that be a ticketable thing just because they're blocking the road?
Well, are they necessarily blocking the road too? I mean, if you're parked on the side of the road and you got 2 of your tires on the pavement, I guess by the letter of law, yeah, you are parked on pavement, okay? But are you really blocking it? Can traffic still move safely through there?
Well, actually what happens is it takes a 2-lane road and makes it more or less a 1-lane.
If they're blocking a whole lane, yeah, I would me personally, if they're blocking an entire lane, I would probably issue a ticket on that.
And we also have a slight curve and a dip in the road, so it makes it visually a little more challenging. I wonder if...
Yeah, I mean, in those circumstances, yeah, if it's blocking that where it's 1 lane is, me personally, I wouldn't have a problem doing that. But I mean, I try to temper it with a little bit of common sense also. If you're on a long straightaway of road and you got a few cars parked along the side, and I'm not saying this is the case that you're in, but if you got 2 tires that are just parked on the pavement, a few cars, are they really blocking anything? Are you really gonna bother these people for that? But if they're in a situation like you just described, yeah, the car is all the way out in the road, it's blocking an entire lane, there's a curve in the road, there's a dip in the road or a blind hill or something like that, by all means, yeah, that car is blocking the road. Not only should it be ticketed, but it should have been removed.
We have, in the case of Michael's yard, he's at where the curve of the road comes down, people come flying 45, 50 miles an hour on that curve.
Can you tell me which road, ma'am?
Right here, Woodstock Avenue.
Okay.
And it dips down, goes over the bridge where the kids are all kind of standing out there in various degrees of, paying attention, jumping off the bridge, whatever they're doing. And then the road comes up here near the firehouse. And what we've seen is people park in the parking lot because now it's become a tourist attraction. And they started parking down along the road because the no parking signs have been torn out. And so what happens is there's people with skis and coolers kind of like going in between the cars out into the road. And I think that road at that point is wide enough to actually accommodate 2 directions of traffic if they go very slowly and carefully. But it's traditionally quite a fast road, and people blast through it, and there's people wandering all over it. And I don't know how that shakes out.
As far as the people wandering in and out of the road, I mean, there's really not a lot I can do with that. I mean, as long as you're coming up and, the car's coming and they step out of the road, all right, it's annoying that you have to stop and go, but it's not like they're continuously standing in the road and not letting you pass. If it was something like that, yeah, that's actually an arrestable offense. That's blocking a free flow of traffic on a thoroughfare, and you could actually be arrested for that.
And does that make for, I'm just thinking it makes a hazard for all those people who are coming across through between those cars. Because I find it to be scary to drive through even slowly. People have little babies and dogs and stuff that are kind of like loose there. And they park right on the bridge itself. So I'm just thinking, is there a way to, as a group, is there a way we can request or ask for assistance from the sheriff's department?
Yeah,
More certain about that?
You can, I mean, we can go out there and assess the situation, and if we think something needs to be done as far as ticketing or towing a vehicle, I'll get you next. Ticketing or towing, then we can make that decision then. I'm not gonna guarantee, yes, yes, we're gonna tow every car out of there every single time. I'm not gonna guarantee that. We can go out there and look at it and say, yeah, this situation is hazardous right now. We'll move them.
And do you guys do regular drive-throughs in the summer when it's hot? You just drive through this section?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on how many people are on and the crew is on. I mean, I used to, when I was actually a deputy and actually did patrol full-time, I would patrol Palenville regularly. It was just one of the areas that I patrolled. Now that I'm a little bit up there in rank, I don't usually get out on the road and actually do patrol as much anymore, so I still come through here from time to time, but not as much as I used to. And there are deputies that do come through here. Everybody's pretty much got their area that they patrol. But one thing you do have to understand, a lot of times with us anyway, I'm not saying so much with the state, but with us, we have one guy that's covering the entire valley, that's 7 towns. So you might not see a deputy for 2 days sometimes, because he's out actually running from complaint to complaint to complaint. He's not really doing patrol.
Can we make a request in the summer to get on a list of, just have it kind of pop up in the conversation of, I know you guys get together in the morning, figure out where you're going and what you're doing?
Everybody's pretty much assigned a post, ma'am, in the morning. Okay, we have guys that work out of the satellites. One satellite's in New Baltimore, one's in Greenville, and one is out in Ashland. The Ashland satellite, he covers 7 towns of the mountain, which is Hunter, Jewett, Lexington, Halkut, Prattsville, Ashland, and Windham. The Kaaterskill car, which works out of the station in Kaaterskill, he covers Kaaterskill and Cairo, and sometimes Kaaterskill, Cairo, Greenville, Durham, New Baltimore, Coxsackie, and Athens.
Wow.
So it's not that we don't want to be here, it's just sometimes, even with a 12-hour shift, you don't get a chance to come through.
We need more funding for you guys.
What's that?
We need more funding for you guys. We do.
Yeah.
If we take the approach, we were talking to the town about what can be posted, can you think of anything that, from the general rules about what you can do near a stream, that we could add to that list? I mean, kind of from the overall management of streams.
You can look at what they do on the state land, right?
Man, yeah,
No fires, no glass.
But then again, you're going back to what we talked about before, the town's inviting the people to the stream.
Well, but if.
But I'm saying before, what is the town's outlook on this? Do they mind the swimmers there? What's their?
There is no formal position,
Right.
yes or no. I mean, they recognize that he was swimming here, 25 years ago. There have been people swimming in these streams for a long, long time. In fact, as a resort town, we used to promote swimming in the stream. Now we've gone over to where people own their stream and don't want people in their stream. So that's a change. And as Anthony and I were talking, the people have changed. The people who are coming to use the stream. And in fact, what I'm looking to do, and I'm not a stream, I own on another stream. I'm looking to try to find some compromise where people can go in the stream with kids, but we restrict the kind of glass in the stream, the parties, the antisocial aspect of it. What I was going to ask is that, given that we know this tends to happen on weekends and holidays, on hot days in the afternoon and into the evening, could we start out the summer with a little additional attention to try to set a standard for what's allowed? And that's probably going to be on the sheriff's office and also on the state police to talk with them about it. But just, we're in a unique situation here. I don't know of any other towns that have swimming holes in the center of town. And I may be wrong, but you know Greene Town.
Pretty close. Prattsville might be the only other one.
That's what I think. So this is a.
The town doesn't own it, don't know. The town doesn't own it, no.
So the question I'm asking is, can we all get together sort of establish a standard, and may require posting from the town on some of these things without making it a health department issue?
Crane, has the town considered adopting a local ordinance on what is allowed on the town property?
No. I don't know that they have or have.
That could possibly be a solution to one of the problems. I know in New Baltimore, one of the things the deputies that work out of New Baltimore satellites do is at dusk, they go to the town parks and they lock them up. The town has an ordinance that the town parks are to be closed from dusk until dawn. Now, I know this is not really a recognized town park with a name and set, thing like that, but if they pass a town ordinance that, and I don't know if this is gonna work or not, I really don't, if the town has the ability to do this, but if pass an ordinance that, no campfires on town property, no bottled drinks on town property, stuff like, and then post that at the entrance to the town property, where that could be a solution. I'm not saying it's, and I don't know what it would actually take for the town to do that. I never really got involved in enacting or drafting local ordinances. I've read some local ordinances that I've looked at them and I've said to myself, you've got to be kidding me, how am I going to enforce this? And some that I was like, that was actually a pretty good idea and it makes sense. So that might be something they could look into. It is the town's property, they can make up their ordinances on what you can do and can't do on it.
Almost similar to the watershed that they own. The town of Catskill owns the reservoir that they have a permit system to go to.
The village, yeah,
That's
up
the
that
village.
Potomac
the
Creek,
village.
the village owns that,
does.
yeah.
If they want to have something for town residents, town of Catskill residents, and they can put stipulations within that permit if they want. And everyone can go down to the village of Catskill or town of Catskill and get a permit to be on the town property.
I see a hand over there, but right behind you.
I'm a resident of 80 years in Palenville, and because of all the waterfalls, the Indian name for Palenville was Town of Flowing Waters, right? So by Facebook now and all that new stuff, we draw a lot of people in this town who just come, dump their car, park over where Shorty's by
White's Road.
was, and they walk behind Gloria Deed, and they bring crap and junk and everything else. I go down with my friend Artie Fries, and we pick up bags of stuff, broken bottles, all kinds of garbage. They don't care, they're day hoppers, or they're people from Woodstock, wherever. So we have to get together and make, I agree with some type of ordinance. Now, out in Long Island, I have relatives who have beaches, and people who own along the waterfront of beaches, they gotta have a town stamp or permit to go on that beach. I don't know if we're gonna become that sophisticated in Palenville, but it's very difficult because the way they're situated all along the Kaaterskill, right? And I see people going up to Haynes Falls, parking along the overlook and everything, and they're leaving garbage for the raccoons, and they think somebody's gonna pick it up. So there is a real problem here.
I see it myself, sir, when I drive up and down the Clow Road every day, I see it.
So this has been going on for years, but now because we live in an IT generation, people talk and they go on Facebook, they say, come to Palenville, go swimming. Drinking and everything else goes on. So it's a serious situation for all the natives here, but they're coming in like drugs. And when it's a real hot day, I remember in the 40s, a plane, a Piper Club with a streamer behind, go up and down the creek, advertising for different hotels and things like that. There were so many people down the creek. It was like Coney Island. and you walk on the rocks, you get burnt. But now we live in a different generation, and we really have to do something about ordinance and upkeep and health and pollution and conservation. I don't know if you handle, the landslides and everything coming down the Clove. Is that ever going to be cleaned up? The sediment?
Oh, the landslides?
Way above
Wow,
us.
no way. That's
We probably don't have anything in the budget for that,
That's,
right?
yeah,
But the
that's
trees
Mother
are still
Nature,
growing.
that's way beyond, there's no fixing that. That's just gonna do what it wants to do.
Yeah,
That
and
is
find its
just-
own way.
It's just gonna go. But the thing I will say regarding trying to nip this in the bud, some people are gonna have to get some tickets. You know, people are gonna have to be arrested, some people are gonna have to get tickets. I'm just telling you, it's the only way to deal with trespassers, because how else are you gonna deal with it? And you were making the point of, you know, social media says come to Palenville, come to Palenville. Well, I'll tell you what, you get a bunch of people get some tickets or they get arrested or whatever, it'll be, don't go to Palenville. And I'm just telling you, that's the reality of it, you know. A lot of people don't wanna get involved, you know, with like filling out a complaint, somebody's on their property, they just want them to leave, you know, can't you just tell them to leave? Well, you know what, you can tell them to leave and then next weekend they come back and they'll just go to somebody else's property or whatever. So I'm just, if you want to make a difference, you're gonna have to kinda wanna enforce the law yourself, and then that allows us to do our job. So, I mean, really, you gotta, you know, if they're littering or they're trespassing or something, sign the complaint, let us do our job, and it will help. If you just want to be Mr. Nice Guy and just say, oh, just leave, it isn't going to help anything.
And call right away. Don't get
That's my
the,
question. When do we call the DEC and when do we call the sheriff's department? For
like we said, the bottom line is we'll get the phone numbers out. Whether
Probably
it's a-
911, it sounds like most likely 911. I mean, we generally, we do
monitor.
environmental stuff, you know, and most of the stuff is not environmental stuff. This is mostly trespassing and,
building dams and making little holes for their kids to swim in. So, and graffiti, which I think is environmental. So do we call the DEC for that or do we call the sheriff's department for that?
Graffiti and stuff, that's pretty much penal law. We'll take care of that. The trespassing, we can pretty much both work on. If you got a situation that you see and it's going south in a hurry, or something needs to be done right away, you can call 911. Somebody will come, whether it be us, DEC, or the Sheriff's Department,
Right.
or New York State Police. Somebody will come. If it's something that, if it's a Sheriff's Department member and it's something that we don't normally get involved, if it's a DEC issue, we can still take all your information, get all the information on the bad guy, and then pass it off to them, and they can do the follow-up. A lot of these things don't get solved overnight. I just want to let you know too. The way the penal law reads, if a violation occurs, if it's not in our presence, we're not supposed to issue an appearance ticket on it, okay? What we would end up doing then is getting you to sign a complaint and basically take a quick statement from you, which we call a deposition, and hopefully the person's local, we can get them a criminal summons from the court and issue it to them then. That's one of the problems we have. If you call us and you see somebody that's down on your property and we get there and the person's still there, and we're observing them on your property, then okay, then we can issue a ticket and solve the problem right there. But because of the way that is, and we've had guys that did cut a corner and got jammed up on that, and we discourage it strongly amongst them just to issue an appearance ticket on somebody else's say-so. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Oh, Mr. Dromrowski was first. He's been waiting a while. I'm sorry.
I was going in a different direction.
Yep.
I guess it's mainly the conservation. How far from the stream does DEC deal with? Is there a set amount offset that you are only concerned with?
you mean as far as like digging in the stream
No,
and
I'm
doing stuff like that, or?
distance-wise first, then I'll get into, 100 yards, are you up to the
Well, it's,
bank?
I mean, the Kaaterskill is a protected stream, so our jurisdiction is the bed and the banks, so it's to the top of the bank. Generally, it's no more than 50 feet, generally,
But
okay?
as long as it hits the top, it's 50 feet or the top of the bank.
It's,
Didn't go by slope.
yeah,
There's an angle.
It depends on the slope of it, it all gets into very specific.
Watershed?
I mean, if you got a bank that's a 90-degree bank to the thing, we got to the top of that bank. And then it gets to the slope changes the
It's
jurisdiction.
45 degrees. That's what it
it's
is.
mostly to the top of the bank. It generally isn't any farther than 50 feet.
Okay,
Unless it's extremely steep, then it'll just keep going to the top of the bank.
All right, so then now it comes to the second part of the question. If someone has a storage of pallets of big blue plastic or 50-gallon plastic things or 50-gallon metal things that you don't know what's in them, if you've got a variety of things, it might be 100 to 200 feet, 50 feet long, 30 or 40 foot wide. It's within, you know, the flat part of the bank where it does flood over time. Does that fall under your purview? You care about that?
I don't. It doesn't sound like it offhand. I mean, I don't know what.
Someone you've dealt with.
No.
That's why he wears those.
And he's not here, right?
Do you care,
Yeah.
I mean, is that
No.
something?
Well, I mean, it's doesn't fall within the bed and banks of the stream, right? And
Well,
then
that's exactly why I was asking. It's, you've got
and
the
he's got
stream, but it floods
just
over. and
he's
it
got
has-
barrels, but
I have no idea what's that.
Is that what he
Right,
did? He
okay.
put barrels up now?
yeah. What's it?
Did he put barrels up now?
No, I don't know. I don't know.
Well, that area
I mean,
floods.
unless we knew that they were leaking something, they had waste oil in them and there was a spill or something, or there's a little bit more to it. I'm sure that I'll be down on that property again, though. I think I know.
Because I had code enforcement
But,
take a photograph of that when they
okay.
were coming and checking.
I mean, if there's something else to it, we can take a look at it. But it sounds like it's not in the bed and the banks. It's
not
up
in-
on. Yeah.
Okay, that's exactly what I was asking.
Yeah.
Okay,
But-
so
Can you
really,
define the
doesn't.
bank?
Yeah.
Can you define the, is it the high water mark? Is that the bank?
It's 50 feet from the high water mark, the mean high water
Above
mark.
the high water mark?
Pardon?
50 feet above the high water mark?
50 feet horizontally.
Horizontally.
Right. So well, either, but if the top of the bank is less than 50 feet, it's just to the top of the bank. So if the top of the bank was 30 feet horizontally, then that's it. The jurisdiction ends at the top of the bank. If it's a really steep, if it's 45 degrees or greater, and it's really a steep and it goes way up, it could be greater than 50 feet horizontally, so we would go to the top of the bank.
Oh, okay.
So, but it's generally to the top of the bank. That's just.
Yeah. You know, with the corrosive things, when the tree was fall, and if the town can buy, you know, some grass, some straw, maybe can be some voluntary work. Because if you throw the seeds, some straw, that is going to stop, you know,
The erosion?
Yeah, the
Erosion,
you know.
yep.
So
Sure.
with voluntary work, if it's got to be a program, you know, these things can be programmed.
Absolutely, yep.
When you talk about mean high water, something that's not tidal, how do you figure out, is it the floodplain? Because that's what, going back to the property we're talking about,
Yep.
that's gonna be, you know.
You can
where
kind of
this
tell
all-
by looking at, I mean, when you walk the bank, you can kind of tell by looking at it. It's generally where the organic matter line ends, and it's nothing but rock after that, because it's the, you know.
So it's not 100-year flood?
No, it's the
Okay.
average.
That's because
Average mean high
where the
water.
debris is that they're talking about, it's in,
I'm sure it's in the
100-year
flood, it's in the
floodplain,
floodplain, right.
but
I
it's not
understand.
in the mean high water?
No, the mean high water is down the bank,
Okay.
generally where the organic matter ends, and it's just nothing but rock.
Could we ask, you mentioned 911, are there other numbers?
I'll give you our dispatch. We have a 24-hour dispatch. It's 1-877-457-5680. It's 1-877-457-5680. And I mean, if you know specifically it's an NCON issue or whatever, it's a fishing thing, or it's somebody is in the stream and they're digging, they got a backhoe, they're doing whatever, I don't know, whatever. If it's something specific for us, you can call that. If you're sort of in doubt as to who to call, I think 911 or the Sheriff's Department directly. And usually the closest unit, whoever it is, sometimes that's even us, will show up and we'll just handle it. It's 877-457-5680. That's for us, and it could be 4 a.m. in the morning, and somebody's going to pick up the phone. And it's all computerized. They know who's working, who's not, who's on vacation, who's working tomorrow, et cetera, et cetera. So it's just a good way to get a hold of us.
One last question about building debris that's slowly moving its way down the bank. I was told 5 years ago that I have to physically see it hit the water. If I see it in the water, but I didn't physically see it slide into the water, then I couldn't prove who it was. does that still apply? There are building materials coming over the bank
From a dilapidated building?
Oh, from
from,
somebody
the
else,
place that you go.
somebody else's property?
It's not our property, right opposite me, where you go quite frequently.
Where I go?
Have been.
Where I go? Who's somebody following me?
I got my eye on you.
Where I go?
live
So
on Mill
stuff
Lane,
is
right off
stuff is kind of going into the stream,
Well, it's making its way right now. There's a
right behind the building, or
Yes, behind all the buildings. There's
behind the
construction.
It's been dumped
Behind the-
over and it's
It's been
still high.
It's not in the water yet,
Uh-huh.
but it's moving down the bank.
huh?
Sheet rock, stuff that gets,
We're behind the residence, right behind the big old hotel
one.
thing there.
yes.
Okay. Well, I'll stop and say hi. Take a look.
Okay, do I have to still physically see it hit the water?
No.
Okay,
No.
Thank you.
No. No. I mean, if it's a solid waste issue, we can take a look at it.
Thank you.
Sure.
And we have a town ordinance about dumping as well. I think there's a very famous.
Most towns do. I don't know.
There's a county ordinance too, isn't there, Scott?
Yeah, that was, what do you mean, like C&D?
Yeah.
Yeah, that, I think they're actually in the process of maybe getting rid of that, because, when it was originally drafted, it was drafted in anticipation of opening up a, county dump, which never did open up, so it's basically like a law that was passed, they kinda like jumped the gun before they passed it.
And I know there's some conflict on another property going related to the stream, not gonna go there at all. But could that same law be applied to somebody who's doing C&D dumping in the creek? No?
As far as I know, no, I mean.
I didn't understand.
That's C&D, dumping it in the trout stream, that's all you on that one.
Yeah. Now, were you talking the county law or something? County or town?
I'm not clear on it. I just know there's a lot of fuss about another C&D project somewhere else in the town. But,
That's in court.
yeah, it's a whole thing I know we want to get into. Just I know because of that, I know that law's been popped around a lot.
Oh, I think the county law.
Yes, I'm wondering if that could be enforced on the stream bank, or if they can just take
I don't know. One thing is, I know we don't, I mean, we work for the state, we enforce state laws, we don't
Yeah,
enforce
they
county
wouldn't
laws
do
or
that.
town laws, so we just, but anyways.
Can I ask you another question, back to the idea of calling you guys and then being willing to give depositions, doing, following through? One of the things I learned when I worked in parks down in Westchester County was to ask people, rather than confronting people who are the bad guys, was to call you, because that's what you all do best. First off, to keep us safe, those of us who have short tempers and might, end up in a conflict with somebody bigger and badder than us. But also to allow you to do the thing you do best, which is to make sure that calmly and very carefully they get the appropriate summons so that they can be inconvenienced badly enough that they don't want to come back and trespass on somebody's land. Can you kind of walk us through that process? What the best case scenario for a landowner might be to protect themselves and to.
You mean confronting somebody that's trespassing?
Well, we
Or-
have people who go down, we see people in the stream and we get out and yell, get the heck out of my property, or whatever, that kind of thing. And what happens is there's a verbal fight, and then you get two people who are like really mad and upset.
Is this in front of your place?
Yeah.
Yeah, all over.
Well, except that that's town property.
Okay.
So they're in the stream, they're legally in the stream.
Yeah, if it's,
Because we don't know where the town stands on it.
yeah, I mean, you're gonna have to
We
discuss
don't
it
know
with
if they're
them.
allowed. We need the town to.
Understand, but your situation, you actually own the stream.
Oh, yeah, they're out.
Right, so I understand that, but what I'm saying is, when you're yelling at the people, they're in the stream legally.
Sometimes, but sometimes their car's in my driveway.
Well, then that's, no, absolutely.
And that's a different issue, yeah, that's,
But back to the people who do on stream, because I see this conflict go on a lot, and I'm walking my dog, and there's
Right.
people yelling back and forth. And I'm wondering, from your perspective, like, what is the best, if you see the person in the stream, take us through that whole process.
Well, you're best to be a good witness. I mean, Scott can.
yeah, I mean,
answer
a lot
too.
of it's gonna depend on how you approach it too. I mean, you approach the situations and you tell the person, listen, you're on private property, you gotta leave. No, I'm not leaving, up yours. Okay, go in and then call, and that's where we'll come in. and then we'll take it from there.
Yeah.
We'll come to see you, we'll take a deposition from you, or actually may even have you sign the complaint. And then we can go, if the person's still there, as I said, either give them a ticket, or if they're not there and we can identify them, then go get a criminal summons and serve it upon them.
Yeah, be a
One or the
good
other.
witness. It's amazing, sometimes people call and they don't, they don't know what the person looked like, or what they were wearing, or what they were driving.
They're
or-
driving, yep.
You know what I mean? Like, it's like, well, it was a white male, and that's all you got, So it's tough too, because you're thinking like, oh, this guy's he's on my property, and you get flustered and whatever, but it's sort of like you want to try to be a good witness, what do they look like? How old are they? Does the guy have a tattoo on the side of his face or something, or some kind of thing that's going to really, so when we run into this guy 3 hours later and he's got a tattoo on the side of his face, then we know it's the guy or whatever. What kind of vehicles is he driving, license plate, all that good stuff, And you're best not to confront him. You're best to make it, it's best to make it seem like everything's fine, everything is fine, and they'll just stay right where they are. And then when we show up, then it won't be fine. But if you yell and scream and they leave,
They're leaving. Yep.
if they leave, then
they left.
Then they left. We got nothing to work with.
Then there's
so.
no more complaint.
Yeah, so you're better off to just be a good witness. Let them keep doing what they're doing. Walk them down, and they'll still be doing what they're not supposed to be doing. And then
Don't tell them
and
you're
then
calling the cops.
Yeah, don't say I'm calling the cops. Yeah, just turn around and leave. And then
This guy over here, before he breaks his arm.
I think it's a lot of repetition here, because the things are not recorded, and every time it's the same problems. It's going in a circle, and nothing gets solved. It's got to have a list with all these problems. If you come 2 weeks from now, the same thing, the same discussion, but not taking it, it's done. So you have the problem, the solution. The problem, the solution. I mean, the words is got to follow the action, because it's only words here. Nothing happens. We speak for months, the same thing. If you come, everything, the same question, the same. But once there are some rules, some regulation, everything is going to change. Instead, 2 years from now, we just want to talk.
Yeah, I'm sure there's enough regulations out there now for us to do some good work. I mean, realistically, the most important piece in this whole puzzle is the people here that are sitting here, that you really have all the power to take care of this matter. Just being good witnesses and then calling us and let us do our job. But it has to happen. I'm just telling you, it has to happen. You can't be nice people and just say, leave and don't come back, because they're just going to come back. They'll come back, and they'll just come back. They'll be 100 yards down the stream, And that's just the way people are. It's just the way people are. So, if they respected you already, they wouldn't be on your property. That's the way I look at it, anyways.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Appreciate it.
Great. Thank you.